We're on to the next chapter now. In my book, It's Not a Boy. We're on to chapter 12, and it's called Scotland, which was very exciting for us to think about anywhere else other than Yorkshire. And this is how it all started. My dad always said that if you waited long enough, you got used to things that you didn't like. But I was not so sure. You see, I never got used to staying behind in Mrs. Bantam's class. And so I was very pleased about the news when I passed my music exam. And suddenly after that, there was more good news for me. I went up into the next class at last. Mam was very pleased with me because I was not going to get on in the world staying behind in a class with kids that were younger than me. Mrs. Bossy Bantam had finally got me to do better with my schoolwork. But it wasn't the real reason that I went up. All the kids that stayed behind had to go up because there was no more room in our class. It had got too big. I didn't tell Mam that the others were coming with me, though, because she might not have been so pleased. Apart from pleasing my Mam, there was another good thing about going up, and that was that I could be with Brenda again. I went straight to sit with her in my new class, and she had saved me a seat next to her all that time. My new teacher was called Miss McBride, and she was pleased with me as well because I was still making progress. A new girl called Melanie had taken my place now at the bottom of the class along with Charlie and Doreen. Melanie had just started in Miss McBride's class like me, but she was also new to our school. Melanie and her mam had moved to Ringham from Hull. And the funny thing was that she had no dad. And there never had been a dad because her mam was called Miss Pratt, not Mrs. Pratt. And because there was no dad, Miss Pratt had to go to work. She went to Hull every morning, just like Auntie Peggy did. When we got off our bus at Ringham to go to school, we saw her standing on the other side of the road, waiting in her high-heeled shoes to go to work in Hull. Brenda said that her mum had told her that Melanie was an American war baby. She said that a lot of Americans came over here in the war, and they were very handsome and knew some exciting things. Miss Pratt did not stick to the lads she knew in the village, but went off with American soldiers and fell in love with one of them. But he had to go away to fight and was never heard of again. Then 9 months later, Melanie was born, and that's how she had no dad. I asked Mam if she could tell me more about it, but she was too busy making apple pie. She made lovely apple pies and was in a hurry because she had to go out and help Dad milking the cows. Mam was always in a hurry, what with housework and sewing and farm work. But as she put the apple pie in the oven, she did say that it was a shameful affair, and she looked sad about Miss Pratt. Other people must have thought the same, because I couldn't help but notice that Miss Pratt did not have any friends. Melanie didn't have any friends at school either, and she was always on her own, even though she was very pretty, and you could see that she was going to be beautiful like her mam. But Melanie didn't seem to want friends, and she didn't take any notice of anybody, even our teacher, Miss McBride. She just stared into space with a faraway look in her eyes. as if she didn't want to be here with us. "Now, children, our lesson is about Scotland today," said Miss McBride, with a funny twang of hers in her voice. She talked like that because she was from Scotland, and we couldn't always understand what she was saying. "This is a picture of a mountain in Scotland. I don't suppose any of you have seen a mountain." She held up a picture for us, and even Melanie looked at it. And it was true. We'd never seen anything like it. Our land here was as flat as could be, just like Mam's pastry when she rolled it for an apple pie. I had seen a few hills, of course, when we went on our Sunday school trip to Scarborough, but these mountains were something different. I stared at that picture with the rocks reaching to the sky, and I remembered the other saying of my dad's, that it was better to stick to what you knew, just to be on the safe side. If Melanie's mum had stuck to what she knew, though she wouldn't have been a shameful affair, and she would have been married ages ago to one of our local lads. But that mountain looked so exciting. I could see that Melanie couldn't take her eyes off it. Maybe she would like to escape to a place like Scotland, because she just couldn't seem to get used to being stuck here at our school in Ringham. Then one day Melanie didn't come to school. She was away for days on end. We saw her mam, Miss Pratt, as usual, in her high-heeled shoes, waiting for the bus to take her to work to Hull, like she always did. But Melanie didn't come to school, and Mr. Bantam, our headmaster, asked if anybody had seen her playing out. Nobody knew anything, because she never played with any of us kids anyway. Charlie knew where she was, though. At playtime, he told us when Melanie's mam went to catch the bus, Melanie stayed in her house all day. He'd seen her when he looked through the curtains when he came past the windows to school. Anyway, nobody told Mr. Bantam, but the next thing was we heard that the kid catcher had been sent for. We were very scared of the kid catcher. Mam told us that if you didn't go to school, he came round to your house to make you go. He must have done his job, because the next day Miss Pratt and Melanie came across our playground in a hurry. We all crowded round to see what was happening. Miss Pratt pushed through the crowd with her head held high and her tight rolled curls bobbing up and down as she walked towards Mr. Bantam, who was coming across the playground to meet her. "Melanie doesn't want to come to school. She doesn't want to be here," said Miss Pratt, as she tossed her curls even more. "She must come to school. That is the law. She has no choice in the matter," said Mr. Bantam. But Miss Pratt tossed her head of tight curls again and kept on walking with her high heels tapping on the hard playground. And then they went into Mr. Bantam's office, and the door was shut, and so we couldn't hear what they said any more. When I got home that night, I told my dad what had happened. He just said that Melanie would soon get used to us all, and get used to Ringham School as well. But I never thought that Melanie would get used to us, because she always looked so sad. Then a bit later on it happened again. Melanie didn't come to school, and I thought she was up to her old tricks. But then I realised that this was different, because Miss Pratt was not waiting at the bus stop to go to Hull to work. Charlie told us that he had looked through the window again of their house, and it was empty. There was nothing at all inside. No Melanie, no Miss Pratt, and no furniture. Nobody knew where they'd gone. But Melanie never came back to our school, and Miss Pratt never stood at that bus stop in her high-heel shoes ever again. It was when we all talked about that day, as we wondered where they'd gone, I thought that maybe they'd gone to the mountains in Scotland. And funnily enough, I found out later that my dad and Uncle Sid were going to Scotland too. It was so exciting. They were going to buy some sheep up there. But my dad was not excited about going away from Yorkshire.